Hi, my name's Genevieve and today I'm going to be talking you through how to make your very own felted melted snowman. We're making our snowman today using a technique called needle felting. Now needle felting is quite a slow craft, so I would definitely recommend setting aside a good 3 or 4 hours to complete this kit, especially if you're new and you've never felted before. So put on that Christmas film, grab a hot chocolate or two and let's get started. Now your kit should contain 2 needles and 4 pieces of wire, a strip of pre-felted wool for our snowman scarf, a reusable Hessian felting mat, and you can keep hold of this for future projects, some white core wool, a small amount of black top coat wool, and a small amount of orange core wool. And we're going to start with preparing our mat. So you'll find one end has a Velcro strip, which we're going to open and fill with some dry rice, just enough so that you can comfortably reseal the Velcro strip. And this will act as a protective surface for us to work on and to protect the needle and any surface underneath. Next, we're going to grab our needles. Felting needles are different to sewing needles in that they have a number of tiny barbs down their sides which act to gather and encourage the wool to mat together. I provided 2 needles because felting needles are quite brittle and they can easily snap, so technique is super important here. We never want to bend or put any force on the needle, and they're also very sharp, so please watch out for fingers. And because of this, I'd also recommend that this is probably suited for children ages 12 plus, or at least under very close adult supervision. And now we've got everything prepared, it's time to get started. Now I provided a template to help guide you on shape and size, but this is only a rough guide. If you're feeling super creative, you don't need to follow it precisely. But if you're new to felting and you want to stick to the plan, you're going to grab a decent handful of wool and encourage it into a light ball shape with your fingers, leaving little wispy bits on one end for your fingers to grip to. And you want enough wool so that it's a little bigger than the part of the template sheet that says head. You don't want it to be so dense that it's solid when you squeeze it. You want it to be sort of light and springy and a little bit bigger than a golf ball, I suppose. And you can always add more wool or remove wool as you see fit. When you're happy with the shape, grab your mat, grab your needle, and holding the wispy bits, kind of like how you'd maybe hold a balloon, we're going to start stabbing our needle into the wool, focusing on the area around our fingers, and this is going to encourage the wool to take on the round ball shape. You want to make sure to twist the head shape around, felting at all angles, never bending the needle, just in a fast up and down motion at different angles. You'll find that the wool fibres should start to mat and hold together. As you can see, I've sped this up, so it does take a little bit of time, but the more you felt, the neater and firmer the shape is going to become. You can keep referring to the template sheet too if that's helpful. But once you've got that ball shape nice and secure, we're going to felt all around the head shape, and this is just going to encourage the wool to knit together and become a bit more dense. Also, take care to felt all over the shape and not concentrate on one specific area. We want to keep it nice and even. We want to be quite methodical about this. So now I'm fairly happy with the shape I have. I'm basically going to repeat the exact same process for the body. I'm going to gather my wool, form it into a ball shape. And I'm going to keep referring to that template that says body. And I'm going to felt around the wispy bits to hold the shape and then neaten the ball all over. Now here I'm finding that one ball is looking a little too small, so I'm going to just add a bit more wool. It's also easier to add more than take away. All you need to do is layer a bit more onto the ball and then repeat the felting process. Obviously, if you're going to start taking things away, you're having to pull the matting apart, so it's much easier to start off a little bit too small and build on the shape. And there we should have our head and body shape complete. And I'd say we're about a third of the way through now, so if you do need a break or you need to put this on hold for a little while, now might be a good time to pause. But if you're happy to continue, the next step is to make the melted puddle. So if you grab your template, you can see that this is made up of about 9 different circles of different sizes, and they're joined together with the wispy bits on the bottom. Now we're going to use a similar technique. We're going to grab some wool, but a slightly smaller handful this time, and I'm going to use my fingers to encourage it into a flat semicircle shape. This is going to make my first circle, so I'm going for a semicircle that's a little bit bigger than shape 1 on the template. Now I'm going to lay this flat on the mat, and I'm going to stab all across the top of the shape, just focusing on one side. I'm leaving wispy bits on one end again to help me attach the shapes together later. And I'm also going to stab around the edges to encourage the semicircle shape. What will happen is the shape will eventually felt into your mat. So once we've got a fairly firm shape, we're going to need to peel it away from the mat, flip it over and focus on the other side. We want both sides nice and neat, and we don't want this to get too stuck into the mat. Again, the same process of felting all across the top and sides of the semicircle shape, just keeping hold of the wispy bits. and you should eventually be left with this kind of shape. Now we're going to repeat this another 8 times, doing different sizes each time. If you'd prefer, you can keep this simple and just maybe do 5 large semicircles. You can keep them all the same size. This part is completely up to you. But if you do want to follow the template, just gather enough wool so that it's slightly larger than your chosen semicircle template, and you should end up with a nice variety of puddle edges. Now, if you'd like to, you can leave this bit until after you've completed all the semicircles, but what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to start joining my semicircles together, just so I have an idea of the kind of shape that I'm going to be forming. So in order to do this, I'm going to lay 2 semicircles next to each other, and I'm going to use my needle to felt them together down the edges, making sure to flip the shape so it doesn't stick to the mat. Then I'm going to line up the next one and repeat. And I'm going to continue like this, positioning the semicircles in such a way that they kind of form almost like petals on a flower, just joining them together and leaving the wispy bits in the centre. Now you might find that it's a little thin in some areas, and if so, all you need to do is grab a little more wool, lay it on the patch that you think needs a bit more wool, and felt into it. And I'm going to just continue now on with my remaining petals, or my remaining felted puddles. And now I'm going to join these last two puddles together to complete my shape. And if you look at the template, I'm not too far off the shape I'd intended to make. Now you might notice that the centre, where all the wispy bits have gathered, is a little bit fluffy still, so I'm just going to go in with my needle and neaten that up. And there we should have our melted puddle. And now we get to start constructing our snowman. So I'm going to grab the head and body shape, and I'm going to pick the one for the body, and I'm going to spread out the wispy fibres on the base and lay that down on the melted puddle. Using the wispy bits, I'm going to felt them into the puddle to secure the body and puddle together. Now if you'd like, you can add a little bit more extra wool to fill in any gaps or any areas that feel a bit flimsy. But once I'm happy, I'm going to repeat this process in the exact same way, but attaching the head to the body. So I'm going to take the head shape, spread out the wispy bits, lay it on my body, and using my needle, I'm going to felt those two parts together. And hopefully you should have the whole shape of our snowman complete. Now I am just going to go in and neaten up some areas that look like they need some attention. You might find that some areas are a little thin, some areas maybe are bulging a little bit too much, or maybe the head or the body isn't quite as secure as you'd like it to be, and all you need to do is grab some extra wool and felt that in, make it a bit thicker. Now moving on to the nose. I'm going to grab my orange felt, I'm going to pinch off a small bit, and I'm going to rub it between my hands. And what this will do, it will just encourage the fibres to mat together a little, and it's just going to make the felting process slightly easier. Now you can add or remove bits until you're left with a sausage shape that you're happy with. And we're going to lay this shape on our mat and start felting, focusing on one end of the shape, which is going to form the pointy end of our snowman's carrot nose. And once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to lay that to one side. And now I'm going to move on to making the eyes, mouth and buttons. And this is probably one of the easiest parts. All we're going to do is we're going to pinch a small amount of black wool, roll it in our fingers to create a tiny little ball. And with these balls of wool, we're going to place them on certain areas of the snowman's body and head to make the eyes and the buttons and the mouth. So for the buttons, all we need to do is place them where we'd like them on the body shape. I'm going to go up vertically, and I'm also going to make them a little bit wonky. And I'm going to grab my needle and use it to felt those little tiny balls in. Now you might find that they disappear if the ball's too small or if the body shape isn't super firm. And if this is the case, what you can do is you can try a slightly bigger piece of black wool, or you can be a little bit gentler with the needle and just keep it stabbing more on the surface as opposed to going into the shape completely. And once you're happy with that, you can grab your carrot, and we're going to take the thicker end with the looser fibres that we've been holding on to when we were felting it, and we're going to lay that or position it on our snowman's head where we'd like the nose to be. And in the exact same way as we attach the body to the base and the head to the body, we're going to use those loose fibres and attach the carrot nose to the head. Then of course our snowman needs some eyes, so we're going to grab some more tiny little black bits of wool, and using the exact same technique to create the buttons, we're going to roll some wool, position it on the snowman's face, and then lightly felt them into the surface of the head. And we're almost there. And now for the arms, you should have 4 pieces of wire. If you'd prefer, you can skip this step and actually go out and find some small twigs from the garden or your local park and use that for his arms instead. But otherwise, if you want to stick to the plan, we're going to take 2 of the wires and we're going to tightly twist them around each other to form a long stick for an arm. And we're going to leave the ends slightly untwisted just to give the illusion of our snowman having some hands. And we're going to do this with the remaining 2 pieces of wire, so we end up with 2 arms. Now we need to make a hole in the body to feed the arms into. You can either use your needle on one spot to encourage a hole, or you could just use some scissors. I'm sort of doing both. If you're going to use scissors, just be careful not to cut too much out of the wool. You don't want the hole to be too big so that the arms sort of fall straight out of it. You can always secure it with some super glue, which is what I'm doing now. And finally, our snowman needs a scarf to keep him warm. So we're going to grab our felt material that's been pre-cut. We're going to wrap it around his neck. And I just like to secure this on just by felting the material into the body with our needle. But you could also use glue if you'd prefer. Or if you're really good at knitting or crochet, you could also give him some other accessories. It's completely up to you. And just for a finishing touch, I like to give my snowman some rosy cheeks. And to do this, I'm just going to use a little bit of blusher. You could also use some chalk pastels, and I'm just going to apply it with a little makeup brush, but you could also use a Q-tip or the tip of your finger. And there we have our needle felted melted snowman. Thank you so much for watching and taking part in this tutorial. If you've purchased one of my kits, then again, thank you so much for supporting my small business. And I'd love to see the results, so please feel free to send me photos, tag me in pictures. If you've completed this tutorial, I'd really love to see what people have made. Sending season's greetings to everybody, and I hope you're happy with your felted melted snowman.